today we're very happy to meet Dr. Maria Ciechocinska from the Institute of Geography, Warsaw Academy, Polish Academy of Sciences in Warsaw. Maria, I'm delighted for this opportunity to meet you. And I'd like to ask you about your geography, your background, and what you're interested in just now.
Thank you, and it is rather a very long story, you see, because my way to geography wasn't a simple one. But as it happens very often, I was much interested in geography, even from when I was just a small kid, because books on geography gives such a great opportunities to understand quite unknown things and to find unknown lands, continents. So, it was something fascinating in it. But I was not an exception. I'm sure that just behavior almost every kid, so did I. But to me, it seems that it was something in it because at those days I had no access to other opportunities to check all these things because it was time of the Second World War, and it was a particular difficult time for me and as well for my parents. So only books give me just this great impression of how wonderful the world is. So I have found that it was very interesting, and I found that I need to know something more about it. So I was studying carefully maps, atlases. I was traveling with all heroes of my books, and it was very nice. But I found that it is not so easy just to go through the whole world, because this world is subject of very great changes, and it directed me to history. So I have found that just the same land, the same country, differs so much when I look at another epoch, another century. And at this moment I feel a little frustrated because everything was so complicated that it was hard to understand it to me. But time was going on, and my knowledge, my experience became greater, and I have got a certain amount of knowledge how to understand all these things which I found in books, and how to understand surroundings in which I was brought up.
Where was that, Maria?
So it was in Warsaw, in Poland, and my parents stay all the time in the same city. So I have no many experience to travel and to know something more about even other parts of Poland, because it was not a good time for traveling and for changing place. So it was a particular time. So my experience from childhood were just were connected to this one city, but experience were rather a terrible one, because the home of my childhood was 2 times completely destroyed. So I have found that human milieu, environment, is a subject of great changes. It was just what I have mentioned. After when I have completed my secondary school, I decided to be economist, but mostly I was interested in social science. But at those days, it was in the early 50s, it wasn't such an opportunity to study social science because of other reasons. So only economics, it seems to me quite close to my interests. And it was quite new domain, it was planning, so it seems that we can plan everything. Everybody was fascinated in planning. So it was a great belief that planning could really do a lot of things, and even just to make better all the things with which I'm not quite happy. During these studies, I have found that this kind of planning and this kind of economics, I'm not quite happy with it. So I switched to history, to social history, because I don't want just to be so much technical oriented. And my it was Central School of Planning and Statistics, and it was school which was at those days equivalent to university, but it was mostly professionally oriented. So it was not this field in which really I could feel quite good. So when I switched to history, I feel quite good because I can just develop my interest, and this line I follow. But during this study, for 3 years, I took courses on geography, and it was my basic knowledge. And just Professor Kostrowicki was my professor. So it was just first contact with academical geography, and he was excellent. So I am sure that even people who are not so much interested in geography, really they wanted to took these courses because of his personality and his way of talking to people and to presenting topics. So I did too, and it gives me really a good background from geography. It was what I have to say, that really I was much involved in this courses. So even for the other subject I have not enough time. But for this one I was quite well prepared. So I was a very good student. So then I have found that history is just it is as it is. So it doesn't give me such a good opportunity to follow my other interests, which are mostly connected with in present day, with contemporary. So I wanted just to be in the middle of all these things which are going on. So I came back to planning, and I have found that it is interesting just to combine geography, planning, but not economic planning, not social planning, but I try all to put all the things together. And I was very happy when one day arrived such an opportunity that I can join a team of people who did research on the topic of decentralization of Warsaw. So really it was in which I was so much interested.
When was that, when you joined that team?
So it was after my a few years of working as assistant at the chair of history at the Central School of Planning and Economics. And then it was also after a few years of my work as the head of a sociological laboratory in one of research institutions. And also it was after my work at the Technical University of Warsaw, where I was lecturer of sociology. But during all this time, all pieces of my researches were connected with a certain part of real world. So it was also, it could be Warsaw or another locality. So I was mostly interested to examine a certain kind of problems which are connected with a certain locality, with a certain social milieu. So, but it was only, I was at those days only looking at it. And when I joined this team, people who were from Institute of Geography and Special Organization, so we are not only looking at these things which were investigated, but also we were looking at the situation before this project started and before this action was undertaken, and also we knew what kind of development are foreseen, and we can guess what kinds of changes could occur in this environment. So it gives a lot of opportunities for to think over, and as well to organize project.
Yes.
So
Who are some of the names at that institute? Maybe it would be interesting to know. Your team members.
Team members. Man who decided to organize this project was Professor Antoni Kukliński. Yeah. He was the first who started with this idea. This idea was quite a new one because it was a state commission which was organized for this policy. And he decided just to give a scientific approach to all this activity. And he organized this group. And this group mostly consisted of young people. Some of them have not enough experience, but they were so keen to do new things. And really we did. And it gives me a lot of experience, and what's more, just a good scientific report as a book was published. So I have really a piece of satisfaction that this work was good done.
This book is called?
It is called Decentralization of Warsaw, 1965-70, because it was only during 5 years when this policy were implemented.
Yes.
So for me it was just a good experience. Then I started as a planner, but not planner. I never designed, but I was mostly interested in planning in the macro scale. So it was planning on the country, national level, regional level. And it was just sufficient for 15 years of my work, It was most the field of my interest. It was not only field of my interest; it was field of the interest of people together with whom I was working. Because in regional planning, national planning, it's a lot of different subjects. So it is impossible just to be alone. So this situation, we need just to be in a group of interdisciplinary oriented people, and the result of our mutual works are interesting. And a great influence to all these projects which we were carried out was the way of understanding planning and space economy, regional planning, was Professor Leszczycki. And at those days as well, in Poland, it was just set a belief that all plans which are prepared on the very top level, and they are carefully done, and then they became as an act, a state act, and they are implemented, so they have to give very good results.
Yes.
And this period of time lasted dozen years, and it was possible just to look at all the things in this way, because we have many regions which were underdeveloped. So there was not a shortage of space, there were no limits to the changes, to the transmissions, so new ideas could be really implemented. So no so many constraints, and there was no crisis. And all these things, all this way of thinking and solving the problems collapsed in the turn of 1780 because of our crisis. We call this as a crisis. But I have found that it is also interesting just to look at all the things, because they give us a new experience to the way of to the way of looking at the problems which are connected with space economy and regional planning. So we have found that it is not so good when we are looking only at the issue at the national level. So we have found that even when things which are prepared on the national level, they are not they are too big, let us say, not adequate to all these things which happened on the local level. So even there are some linkages between top and the bottom, but it was not sufficient. We have found that there are so many issues which cannot be disaggregated, and all these global approaches they bring to so many deformations. So it is really very bad. And this gives us a great experience, which is also a very painful one, because always for such kind of experience somebody have to pay. So we have found that space is limited, and even the best projects have also their social and economic limits, and the new ideas cannot be just put forward and then insist to implement them, but it should be done very carefully, because space is a rare thing, and it is not enough. For such kind of activity as transportations, as human settlement, we can use any land and as much as possible. But what about other needs, like agriculture needs and things like that? So you see, it's a problem how to arrange the variety of human activity in the one spot, how to keep in good balance, and how to find a good solution which could be good not only for man, for society, local society, community, but as well for economy, and as well for environment, and once more for the next generation. But because we can spoil it, and it will be nothing for the next generation. So, it is just during my professional life, my knowledge developed, and even experience. It's obvious, but just how complex this issue are. I have found it just recently. It is funny to say, because it takes me such a long time, and all these things in which I was so much interested, I have found that are not sufficient. So just everything is just a complex, and it should be a system approach used to solve not only everyday problems which occur in environment. I mean environment, not only physical environment, but as well as social environment, because it's a really one system.
But Maria, with regional planning in Poland, isn't it so that the work of this research team is mostly on the implementation or the strategic level? Policy is established politically. Is that correct?
No, it's more complicated. Because there is not such a division. It seems to be that they are overlapping, and sometimes there are actions which are going simultaneously. Of course, it was changes from year to year, but in my experience, there was such a period of time when we are working parallel. So for our findings, the State Commission of Planning was waiting, and they called us why we are doing this thing so long time. So you see, it was more complicated, and then we have found that it makes no sense, because our targets, they are researchers, and we are not politicians, and we don't want just even to take up responsibility for the politics, and we want to be neutral in our research. Of course, some of people who are involved in research, they like it. It gives them a pleasure, and really they feel quite well. But I belong to these people who are mostly interested in researches, and it is field of my interest. So of course, I'm satisfied when I can just prepare a good project where my findings out, they have a great value for praxis. They show what kind of strategy could be implemented, what it should be done, what not, what are advantages, what are disadvantages. Because for politicians, there are things which are not so important because they are involved and oriented quite in a different way. So it's my job. But it's another story, you know. At this moment, it's another story.
Yes. But now, Maria, in your own training in geography, what you told me, the Kurt-Ake course,
excellent one.
Was that oriented toward this regional science, regional planning, or was it a more broad?
It was in the early 50s, as I told you.
Yes.
So in the early 50s, I'm afraid that nobody was thinking about regional science, and even Walter Isaac didn't wrote his first book. Yeah. So, but it was what did Kurt-Ake? He gave an excellent course on classical geography.
Yes.
And he gave an excellent basis for understanding. So it is just the most important thing.
The reason I asked was because I wondered if it is just Warsaw that has given the reputation of the Polish school as
I'm afraid that no, it's not Warsaw. In Poland there are many university centers with a very long tradition, historical tradition, many centuries traditions. So it isn't just an exception, not at all.
I meant the reputation of the Polish school as being quantitatively oriented and regional science oriented. You see, these are the kinds of images that people have about the Polish School of Geography.
I'm afraid that it is a simplification. Yes, it depends on people to whom you are talking. Yes, because everybody has its own image of discipline and field as well. So to me, really, why we insist to have this division, a regional approach and geographical approach, because it is useful when we are teaching. It is interesting just to make things clear. But when we are doing our projects, so we try just to integrate all these different kinds of approach. There's no barriers.
Yes.
But for other purposes, we need to keep these barriers.
Yes.
So it's good just when we can educate our students in this way, then they can quite easily go through this classical barriers between different speciality.
But so the other departments in Poland that you mentioned, these with long historic traditions and so on, do they cultivate a different kind of geography there?
Of course, it depends on people who are actually involved, because everybody has its own interest and, let us say, hobby, even within science. So the stresses are not put in the equal way in the all academic centers. So, for example, when I am teaching, I put a great stress to sociological issue. I'm afraid that at this moment I'm too much sociologically oriented. But I have found that it's good when I can just prepare such a good piece of work which could be published in a sociological journal, review on academic level. And at the same time, the same piece of my research could be accepted by geographical review. So you see, it shows me that it is just good because I can quite easily move from one scientific milieu to another. But I'm not sure if really it is just the point, because it takes a lot of time, because at this moment I have to organize 2 different workshops. because these are different disciplines, and these people, they are using different methods, tools, and things like this.
Yes.
And what these which are accepted in one milieu, they can't be accepted in the other one. But you know that we are doing such kind of projects which sometimes we have problem with them, because there are some academicians who don't want just to accept it. They told us that it makes no value to do things like this. But to me it's okay, because it needs time, you know.
Yes.
If this project was really good done, and it has its own value, so it needs time. And then in 5 or 10 years people come back and will be quoted it, and will be just during discussions or in classes just show to students, this is, you see, you can just look at the things and find it how it could be organized, how it works. Just to understand even the process, because it is very difficult. In geography, mostly we are oriented just in the one time section, but it is only just like take a snip. So it is not enough. We have to. It's very important, but on the other hand, we have just to look at the process, how it changes in the time, to understand it better.
Yes, yes. So you bring your history interest into your geography.
But I don't want it to do it. So it arrived by itself,
yes,
you know.
Yeah. But Maria, now I'm very curious about, in your sociological work or your sociologically oriented work, what are the kinds of main currents of theoretical background that you call on? Who would be some of the authors that would be favored for you in your work?
Authors? So I have found that authors, it's, of course, I need some great authority in science. It's quite easy to find that it's difficult to work for a very young scholar without authority.
Yes.
Because to have new ideas, to invent new things, to give a fresh new look for young people is very easy. But they are not prepared to present it in an academic way. So at this moment they failed. So at this moment they need to be supported. They need to use support big names, just to find that it really is so. So it was also my case. I did it so. But then I have found that it is only just to make a next step, but it's not the problem of development of a theoretical approach or even to solve the problem, but only to prepare it for publication or for communication, for scientific communication. I have found that it is not really what I need, because mostly it gives me the greatest pleasure just to make things which are useful for practice, which really are inside of things which are just around me. So I have found that I have to change the presentation of my finding out. So it seems to me that there are two possibilities. One, just to quote, to find big names, people who are considered to be famous with big names, or just to prepare to give more work from me, but to give more empirical data and to show that the process, that all elements, all factors in which I am looking at, they are working in such a way. So at this moment I can stay alone, just making use of all this theoretical approaches which I know, but I don't use it at this moment, because I am just presenting it in quite different background. So I organize my own workshop, and I have found that there are two different things. For example, when we are presenting our piece of research at the congresses, conferences, and things like this, so you know, there is not enough time as usual, and it is certain limits, space limits, how many words, how many pages, things like this. So you have just to make your choice. just to present empirical findings out, or just to give a revaluation or to give your input to a theoretical approach, but just to combine all these things together. So you have to write a book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and you have.
So did I.
And this book is.
So I wrote a few books. Just one of them, it was on the demographic problems of the Warsaw agglomeration. And I have found some basic regularities within the metropolitan area. It's nothing new, but it was quite new in Poland because we have planned economy and everything was arranged. Warsaw was totally destroyed, so it was quite new city after the World War II. And I have found it just classical differences between different zones and certain processes that are typical even in socialist cities. So so and I have found that it is not a monolithic city. It is different. It differs because different are people, different are social groups, different is society within.
How much has history recreated itself within Warsaw?
Oh yeah. History influenced much. It was so interesting to find that all these places, which were considered to be the best, just in the time before World War II, in which were concentrated the privileged people, it repeated after the time of reconstruction. So nothing new. Even when such a great effort was done to change it, But what about demographic life cycle in the city? So nobody looked at it. But it has its own rules, which are just a neutral one, and we cannot change it because there are some social mechanisms of reproductions which are so strong that planners, politicians, they are too weak to change them.
Too weak to change
them? Too weak to change them,
or
yes, I'm sure about it.
The Polish people are too strong to not change.
So I don't know if really we have to change them, but the problem is that on the one hand we are still claiming for equality of social chances and equality in every domain. So we have to look at our surroundings and our social milieu and to know how it looks like. If we don't want just to say only slogans. So it's my understanding of geography. So I try to make correction in this image, which is sometimes it isn't a real image because nobody look how reality looks like.
You know how images are made in our part of the world.
And I know as well how fast they are changing. So my image, which I am preparing, which takes me a lot of work and many years of my work, it's not once forever. It's also has its historical dimension.
Yes, indeed. As you look now to the next phase of your work in planning, with this sociological orientation and this comprehensive concern also. What difference will there be? You've learned a lot from, presumably, what didn't work in the last 15 years.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
How do you envision now the future in the orientation of your work in regional planning?
Yeah. So now we are quite aware, it's not only my opinion at this moment, that we need planning. Even when we just resigned for many things in planning during the last 3 years. Planning is necessary. And planning should be reviewed. So I'm afraid that many theories which were adopted, they don't work anymore. Because society changes as society, because it is just a transitions of generations. So what could be accepted for the old generation is not accepted, not at all for the young generations. It's generation of the the post-war baby boom.
Yes.
They are quite different people. They are well educated, broad-minded, with high aspiration, high expectation. So it's quite different people.
But what sorts of theories will be guiding? Would be potential.
So
guidelines?
yes, it's my private opinion. So maybe that I'm wrong.
Yes,
So.
yeah.
If we meet a few years later, so we can just evaluate it. But now, I'm just guessing.
Yes.
So it's only intuition, my intuition,
Yes.
maybe. So I have found that the thing which is very important in Poland, but not only in Poland. So it is just to go with planning at the bottom. So to start planning at the local level, For many, many years, we have believed that central planning, when it is so well done by people who do their best, who are well prepared, who have good knowledge and things like this kind of planning failed. So now it can't be just implemented anymore. So I have found it's just opposite to it, local planning. But there are also limits to local planning.
Of course.
So it is also a utopical idea. So now we have to define exactly local planning, okay, but to what extent and when this and where this local planning should be influenced by regional at the provincial level, and when it should be influenced on the top level, so national level.
Would you envision more discretion of decision making also for local areas?
Of course it is. It is a problem of power at this moment. Planning doesn't exist as a planning. It is an institution. And at this moment we started just our discussion about a political issue. So it's not a neutral thing. So it is a problem of participation. To what extent people are involved, are interested, and they want to take all the things in their hands and to farm it. So it is the problem. So you see, at this moment, planners I have found that have very difficult position. Because for many years they were working quite happy in office. They prepared different plans, and this plan were accepted by authorities, and it was just sufficient. And when I'm just telling that local planning, so it means that quite new social arrangement and political arrangement should be done. And just recently, it was a few weeks ago, when new act on territorial power. So in Poland, it is a system of national council. So it is government at the local level was put in force, and it is labeled as a system of territorial government units. So let us be a great optimist that really this bill could help us as a planners.
Yes,
and then we can just theorize this experience.